Hello everybody, hope you're doing fantastically well. It's Connor here, and yes, we are back with another One Leeds video. Make sure you're smashing a like on the video, as I always say, everyone. Make sure you check out the Patreon as well. We're going to have some more content this week for the channel. Alongside that, make sure you check out BETMATE, the channel sponsors everybody. We've got some great stuff going on with those guys pretty much all the time. Now you can actually get involved in the equity of BETMATE as well. The link will be in the description to get involved in that sort of stuff, so make sure you do that. And we're in the World Cup straight now, aren't we? We are in unknown territory in this winter period, which is... It's going to be fascinating. It's going to be great to see people like Brendan Aronson. It's going to be great to see Tyler Adams, obviously Rasmus Christensen, and the rest of the squad is going to be remaining at Ellen Road. So, yeah, going to be fascinating. Obviously, Leeds do have a friendly on the 16th of December to contend with. So that's going to alleviate a little bit of Leeds United boredom for us guys. But I wanted today to talk about the January transfer window. And the reason I wanted to talk about the January transfer window was because Leeds are going to have to get involved, as we all know. A left back, a striker, and ideally a centre midfielder and a centre back. That's what I'd be looking at. There is zero chance that will get done. So let me get my realistic hat on. It is going to be a striker for me or nothing. So just listened to Phil Hayes' podcast this morning, and he was almost quoted, and I'm paraphrasing here, as saying that Leeds are a little bit worried about the striker profile. Now, this has been a problem for Leeds for a number of years now, and not only the striker profile, but the midfield profile as well. It seems like a little bit of an excuse in terms of they want to be specific. They don't want to block the pathway. Remember that key word they used to use, or Kinnear used to use, every column he used to write, and every sort of podcast he used to involve himself with. He'd always talk about the pathway and not blocking youngsters, and not blocking the players who are in the actual team now, and not upsetting the cohesion of the squad. Well, at some point you've got to do that, Angus. At some point you've got to do that, Andrea and Victor. At some point you have to regenerate this squad, because it can't just be the same squad for the next 10 years. I don't understand what business model it is when we are just constantly worried about that next person coming in, those next people coming in who are going to elevate Leeds to that next level. I completely understand that a certain person needs to come in to fit with the group, and I think that's the right way of going about it. But the specificity that Leeds United run with is staggering. We saw it in the June month, where it was Charles de Ketelaere for the entire 30 days, and then towards the back end they panicked and thought, oh no, we do need a striker. We're not going to get Charles de Ketelaere because we're competing with the Italian champions, and we were relegation fodder the year before. So we need a plan B and a plan C, and they didn't have a plan B and a plan C, and they almost just tore the rule book up and just went clearly with some players who weren't on the list throughout the entire January window, which was Cody Gakpo and Bamba Dieng. That didn't work out. Those two didn't work out. And it got to crisis point, didn't it? Where we were embarrassing. It was all over Sky Sports. Our Leeds had failed to get a striker. Bamba Dieng medical had fallen through. It was just chaos. Cody Gakpo had rejected Leeds allegedly at Eindhoven's airport. Said he wasn't getting on the jet. It was just kamikaze. So what I'm trying to say, everyone, is this needs to be better prepared. We need to have more options throughout the January month than just one and plan A. And I think Jesse was alluding to it. I think he was alluding to it in June. Leeds need a striker. Patrick Bamford, in my opinion, is never going to be Patrick Bamford again. And that's not in terms of who he is. I just mean in terms of the striker. I've never massively been fully convinced on Patrick Bamford as it is. I think he misses way too many chances. I do think the profile of striker is excellent in terms of his hold-up play and his link-up. His running inside the channels is always something which is fantastic. But I do think maybe Leeds fans and other fans as well do get, and these are my thoughts on it, maybe a little bit obsessed with the whole movement tag with Patrick Bamford and what he gives to this Leeds United side. And the reason everybody gets very obsessed with it is because we've never really had a striker to compare to him in terms of that profile of striker. It's always been Rodrigo, it's been Eddie Nketiah, it's been Joe Gelhardt. These are not Patrick Bamford profiles. You've got someone like Ollie McBurney who's closer to a Patrick Bamford profile than all those three. And I'm not saying you all have meltdowns that we need to get Ollie McBurney in. I'm just saying that is a little bit more of a similar profile to Patrick Bamford. So I think that's definitely got to be considered. And the reason it's got to be considered is because there are profiles out there. It's going to be more expensive for a striker because guess what? We didn't do it in the June months. And if you've got a striker playing well, which strikers who are the Leeds will notoriously want in the European leagues, who are going to seamlessly fit into this Premier League outfit and league, they're going to have to be performing well. So it's going to be more expensive because clubs are less willing to let that player go because they've got to reinvent themselves in that season as well, because a striker is the most important position on the pitch. So Leeds have left themselves with a lot to do, but there's no point in talking about what has been. We need to talk about Leeds being proactive, and this specificity has to become a little bit more open, in my opinion. And if they do that, if they've got 2 or 3 players on the list, they can surely get someone through the door. And maybe for some people who will come in here and say, Connor, look, there isn't that many teams out, players out there who we can go get. I am not a football coach. I'm not a football coach. I'm not a recruitment guy. I'm not the guy who gets paid the big bucks. What I am saying is Victor Orta, that is what he's paid for. So he should have a list of 3 strikers. He should have a list of 3 left backs as well. I want to touch on the left back as well. That's something that needs to happen. I think what we've seen in this last month is what we've all been saying, and people might like him, but Liam Cooper is too mistake-ridden. We saw that against Tottenham. We've seen that against Crystal Palace. We've seen that in spells against Arsenal as well. Listen, I know he can play a crossfield ball, and people have liked his leadership at Leeds for many a year, and people like Cooper. But I'm not here in the like and friend business. I want a quality centre-back to come in and be able to keep Leeds in the Premier League and evolve with Leeds. And for me to see a long-term project, I'm not in these family vibes. I have no attachment to any of these players. I don't. I like them, of course I do, but I've got no attachment to them. If Liam Cooper was to go, if Luke Ayling was to go, I wouldn't care. I really would. If Mattis Clip was to go, I wouldn't care. Thank you for your service, but goodbye. It is what it is. It's not friends are us. So, yeah, that's what I'd be looking at. I'd definitely be looking at a left-back, and then at least you can move our best centre-back next to Pascal Struijk, and I would love to see that partnership develop between Pascal and Koch, because people keep talking about, nobody's the same unless they're with Cooper. Well, how do we ever develop then? How do we ever develop? Are we going to keep Cooper? Are we going to keep wheeling Cooper out when he's 42 years of age because everyone's a little bit tentative about putting Pascal next to Robin? We need to start developing that partnership. There would still be a young partnership, and I'd like to see how those two would complement each other on a long-term basis. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You then go out and buy another centre-back. You go out and buy another centre-back. That's what you do. So, yeah, that's my thought on what's going on in the Leeds United world. And I think you bring in a left-back, and that makes us defensively a little bit more solid as well, because you're not relying on a centre-back to be able to sort those issues. So Phil also said, you need somebody who thinks of themselves as a centre-forward when we're going back to the number 9. A goal scorer, somebody who wants to play as a number 9. The one thing they really want to avoid is ending up signing someone who essentially plays in a position that's already covered. And Phil just said, I think they need to go for a number 9. And yeah, the problem is, everybody, with a striker, you need reliability and you need dependability. We haven't got any strikers who are reliable or dependable. You could even throw Rodrigo in that when it comes to injuries generally. And I think you need to go out and get a striker who you are going to be able to rely on throughout the season. If you don't do that, Leeds are going to be in trouble. You can't just rely on Crescencio, Somerville guys. You can't rely on Willy Gnonto to provide the goals. Rodrigo, you definitely can rely on him, and we've needed to rely on him for a long time. And if you can keep it up, fantastic. But I'm still not convinced with him that he's going to be able to keep it up. I still think there's breakdowns with Rodrigo. And if Rodrigo's the answer to Leeds' striker problems, what is the question? And that's not me being disrespectful at all, because I'm so happy with what he's done at the minute. I think the finishes at the weekend were fantastic. And you look at, he scored 10 goals now? Fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. And let's hope he can keep it up. But even if Rodrigo is to stay as Leeds United striker, we need someone to be competing with him, because that person will push Rodrigo. They'll push each other, and it gives Leeds a variation of options up front. And it gives us that ability as well to play that Red Bull system, which is a little bit more direct, because at the minute, you normally have to pass through that central space to Rodrigo and get it onto his left foot, because you can't go direct to him. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens, but this is it could be one of the biggest transfer windows in Leeds United's history, and that's why I don't trust this board at all, and that's why I'm a little bit tentative about it. That's why I'm maybe a little bit more skeptical about it than others, But they've just not proved to me that they sort out any of the issues in the entire time they've been in charge. There is always one or two positions which is left. And then you'll probably get Radrizzani coming out and saying what a terrific window we've had. But if they go out there and get a left back and they get a striker, I still think we need more. However, it does solve Leeds' critical issues at the minute. And if they're able to get a good striker who's dependable, then who knows? There's a lot of people who turn their noses up at the Championship. The Championship is a breeding ground of talent and very, very good players. We should know that as Leeds fans. We should know that we were there for 16 years. We saw some quality players go from the Championship up to the Premier League. Crystal Palace have exploited that perfectly. So don't turn your noses up at the the Championship. And quite a lot of the time as well, that transition from the Championship to the Premier League is a lot smoother and a lot easier than some of these European leagues to the Premier League. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of very, very good Championship players at the minute who are playing up front, who are doing very, very well. And we'll get onto that in future videos, of course we will. But guys, let me know exactly what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think Leeds will do any business? If we don't do any business, what are your thoughts on that? Guys, have a good one, and I will see you in a bit. Cheers.